So work with me for just a moment. Imagine the scenario. Around the organization, there's a whisper of something new. Everyone's been invited to the town hall meeting. Everyone starts to gather. And there's an anticipation in the room. And the CEO walks onto the stage and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've invited you here today for the launch of our new strategy. It is a strategy that will be good for each and every one of you. It is a digital strategy that will take us to the future. But I alone can't make it happen. I need each and every one of you to come together, not just as a team, not just as a department, but as a family, because only as a family can we make our digital strategy come alive." And he turns to the audience and says, "Are you with me?" And as everyone's cheering and celebrating, the music fades out. And two guys at the back of the room go, "What was all that about?" "I don't know, but there's some free sandwiches and coffee. Let's go and get something to eat." On any given day, somewhere around the world, with today's focus on digital, there's a CEO launching the new strategy. But already, only a few years into our digital journey, how many of these new strategies are succeeding? What we're seeing already is that more promises are failing than delivering. And what's going to be my pleasure in the short time I have with you this morning is to give you a brief insight into what it really takes to execute a digital strategy. It's also a little bit of interactive, so you're going to need a partner, and you've literally just got 20 seconds. Could you turn around, say good morning to somebody at the table, shake hands because you need a partner? 20 seconds, turn around, find yourself a partner. Okay, here we go. With your partner, would you prefer in your organization, and you have to choose A or B, okay? A good digital strategy but implemented badly, or B, a bad digital strategy but implemented well. Now, there's no C, okay? I was in Mumbai the other week. Oh, the answer. Okay, you have to choose A or B. You've got just 1 minute with your partner. Which would you choose and why? Go. All right, here we go. Can we just have a show of hands in the room? Who would answer A? Show of hands? Okay, and who would answer B? Okay, about 40% A, 60% B. Now, normally I like to ask the audience, but just for time today, I'm going to take a guess at some of the responses. Some people who say A say, Robin, if we have a good strategy, we have the foundation. We know the direction we need to go. And as long as we have that, along the way, we can fix the implementation. Other people say, hang on, no, B is the better answer, because if we're good at implementation, it means we're able to adjust things and we have the whole organization working together. Now, there is a correct answer. The correct answer is B. Okay. Why? Well, we've seen from research that I've been doing now for 18 years, since I started my company, Bridges, we've seen over the last 18 years the promise of a strategy, but they're just not delivering. Also, how do you know if a strategy is good or bad? Only when it's implemented. So why does that make B the right answer? If you're good at implementation, you have the capabilities, the structure, the systems, the resources, the accountability, the culture alignment, the synergy of your processes, all going on. And when the implementation's not working, when the strategy's not working, you have the information and you know. So you're able to go back up and make changes when required to the strategy. Now, given the choice, which would you, of course, prefer? You would say C. And when we talk about a winning strategy and a successful implementation, what's going to be my pleasure to share with you is this wonderful success story of the Development Bank of Singapore that we now call DBS. The CEO, a gentleman called Piyush Gupta, took the bank on an amazing journey. And 2016, Euromoney launched the first Digital Bank Award, which DBS was very proud to receive. Here was Piyush's reception speech.
Be here to receive this award, particularly because...
Volume, gentlemen.
I believe this is an award for the future, and not just an award for the past, and that's a pretty cool thing. Unfortunately, I believe the good times are over. I think we're at the cusp of some pretty profound changes, what some people have called a WhatsApp moment in banking. I think technology, the smartphone obviously, but big data, machine learning, algorithms, et cetera, are going to redefine our industry in ways which are totally unimaginable. I believe that banks in the next 10 years, maybe even in the next 5 years, will either transform or they will die. In this kind of environment, I think it's critical to be thinking of transformation. And my colleagues and I at DBS have been singularly engaged in this effort over the last several years. It's not just about technology, about using API, rethinking technology, middleware, data. It's about cultural change. And how do you create a 20,000 people startup? That's not easy. Everybody wants to come in T-shirts and jeans, and that's not necessarily a good thing. But it's great fun. It's a great journey. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody. This award is a tremendous encouragement for the journey we've been on. It's also tremendous encouragement for all the steps that we need to take going forward. Thank you all.
The gentleman sitting down is Peter, the chairman of the board. And the quote from Piyush is, DBS today is a remarkably different bank. We are more resilient, diversified, and on a different operating, higher plane. And they really were. In 2011, when the CEO Piyush joined the company, in Singapore, the taxi drivers give you wonderful expressions. And they used to say, DBS, damn bloody slow. Okay? It was terrible. It was a nightmare. And in 4 or 5 years, they transformed the whole organization that DBS now stands for Digital Bank Singapore. But I want to give you a word of warning. For those sitting in the room who are working in banking or looking at a digital strategy, copying the business model without copying a mental model leads to disappointing results, is a quote from Mark, which I fully agree with. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to put this into context. When Piyush joined the bank in 2011, he presented to the board that he wanted to make it an international bank, improve the standards, the quality, what was required. And they focused on 3 areas: customer service, process improvement, and culture. Not unusual. I mean, I've been working with banks for 25 years. Many I've seen do this. The difference was they succeeded. The strategy became the Asian bank of choice. So they didn't compete internationally with the Stanchart or Citibanks or HSBC, and they weren't looking to compete locally in Singapore, but that sweet spot between the two. And this image became known as, the house that Piyush built. And it gave on one page for the 19,000 employees at that point what needed to be done. You can see very clearly Asian relationships, Asian insights, Asian service, Asian innovation, and Asian connectivity. So very much focused on 5 markets in Asia. Some of the key things that transformed the organization, these were important. Why? Because you can't make a digital bank or even a digital company if you haven't yet got the house in order. So the first strategy was to clean up the house, fix the plumbing, improve the service, get rid of the queues. They focused on process improvement engagement, working with the board, starting a digital mindset, innovation, talent, scorecard. RED became the acronym. 3 adjectives, stood for respect, easy to do business with, and dependable. So the staff understood what the strategy meant. And RED became an adjective in the bank. All the staff knew what they had to do for the customer. The final one, MC2. Piyush realized he only had 20 direct reports, and they weren't big enough to champion his strategy. So he asked 400 more, his next tier down, to join. So they became ambassadors of the strategy. And then 2015. The board turned to Piyush and said, here's $200 million. It's not a bad day. And they said, go and blow up the bank, which I was a little worried about saying here today, but you know what I mean. Okay? They said, hang on, we've built a great bank, now we're going to completely change it. Huh? So they launched Strategy 2.0, called the Joyful Banking. You can see the pillars, the Asian pillars are still there, but this was their beginning really into digital. If we can make banking joyful, you deliver a very distinctive experience. You deliver joyful banking. Now, come on, guy. How often do you hear the word banking and joyful in the same sentence? Not very often. Okay? So this was, a real challenge. Do you know millennials prefer to go to the dentist than a bank branch? They find going to a branch more painful, okay, than going to the dentist. So this then posed the question, should you start digital as a separate initiative outside the company or from the core inside the company? Which do you reckon? Outside? Well, there'll be mixed views in the room. Piyush's approach, if you want to make change real, and if you really want to make change cohesive, you attack from the core. So they took the investment from the board, and they started to transform the bank. From legacy, waterfall, manual projects, operations, analog, they focused on microservices, cloud, APIs, agile, automated development platforms designed for no ops, and paperless system. And the term that's now very much in the bank culture is to make banking invisible. So the whole experience should be invisible for the end user. The 3 challenges. Well, hang on, so I'll go back one. So part of the biggest challenge was Piyush, last time I chatted with him in his office, he said, Robin, creating an international bank, that was relatively easy. I'm like, you're kidding. He said, no, I know what an international bank, you know what an international bank, you in the room know what an international bank looks like. But what does a digital bank look like? You know, here we are just at the second digital banking conference. You know, none of us know, okay? So here's what they set out to do. They wanted to be customer obsessed, data driven, take risk and experiment, agile, and be a learning organization. And I hear so many people say we want to be a startup. So this is how the bank did it. They focused on, in their digital strategy, acquiring customers through digital, making sure their transactions were paperless and cost less, and engaging their customers, you know, repeat business, cross-sell. Nothing new there, but they did it all through digital with platforms and leveraging their data. And what were some of the concerns inside by the employees? Does this look familiar for today? Look familiar? Who said this? This was said by JFK over 40 years ago. So they had this fear people were losing their job. They quickly overcame. And here's the 11 steps that the bank went through. And I'm just going to read these through very quickly. They established a clear digital vision. They established a digital-first culture. They have customer design thinking. Now, I'll give you a quick important tip here. DBS's design center is on the 44th floor of their tower, which is the most expensive real estate in the world. But it was very symbolic that said, we're very serious about this, and we're investing the location right in the heart of everything we do. Create cross-functional customer-centric model. Empower the technology management groups to focus on systems and engagement. In 2016, when they launched the digital, Piyush combined customer experience and technology. He said it has to be one unit. It can't be two different teams working separately. Protect your customers' trust. Okay? Cybersecurity can't be an afterthought. It has to be part of the strategy. Make it measurable. Okay? Think big, start small, act swift. Not something we do in banking very easily. Learn to experiment and co-create. Leverage the data and evolve legacy technology systems to survive. Okay? So number 9, learn to experiment. Every leader had to be involved in an experiment. When you look at all 11, how many of them are natural banking activities? How many? Maybe 3, 4. I put in black. Really, about 4 of them we do naturally. The other 7 was a complete change in the DBS culture. So for the last part of my presentation, I'm just going to give you some quick hits. What were the major triggers in DBS's success? How did they move so quickly? How did you get then, by now, 22,000 people involved? They used hackathons. Okay? They didn't put people in classrooms and try and teach them digital literacy. They threw them into hackathons. And this is what it looked like.
I want our people to wake up to the new way that mankind lives, to what digital means. And you can't do that in classrooms. You can't put people in front of a blackboard and teach them what digital is all about. The only way you can do it is through experiential learning. Now this Megathon Hackathon is so exciting because it allows us to check many things in one go. It's a tremendous opportunity for us to get our best and brightest and give them a tremendously different exposure to the new digital world that is on us, which allows you to get startups, people who think differently, mix and match them with our people, and give them an opportunity to think in a different frame is just fantastic.
They were created to give people a sense of what it was like to work in an intense, rapid innovation environment, to come up with solutions in a very short period of time that would spark inspiration within the business to do something around those solutions.
So hackathons became the inspiration, involving the people. Okay? They adopted human-centered design thinking. Okay? So for example, banking queues are something we all have to deal with. What was the solution? Today, when you go to the branch, you text the SMS, they give you a number. Not only do they give you a number, but 5 minutes before you're due to be served, you get a reminder that your time within 5 minutes. So you go out shopping, have a cup of coffee, you get the text, you go into the branch, and you don't have to wait. Just one example. Their call centers, okay, have fallen from 700 to 500 call centers this year, 2017, yet the volumes have gone through the roof because the call center people are now using data analytics and tools from the App Store to redefine the ways they handle, automate, and digitize incoming calls. The ATMs were a tremendous success. They partnered with a design center company in Singapore called A-Star. And the last time I checked with Peter, their cash outs, they had 8 months now with 0 cash outs. They use the algorithms now to ensure that the ATMs, when the peak times are, to make sure they are fully stocked. DBS actually has the biggest ATM network in the world of all banks, and the biggest ATM machine at the Marina Bay Sands. Okay? So this was an amazing achievement with significant cost savings of $20 million. Now, then they broke their own rule. You heard Peter saying it all comes from the core. Then they decided to launch a completely branchless bank in India called Digibank. Oops, sorry. Okay. In the first year, they had 800,000 new customers in the first 12 months. It's been a tremendous success. Digibank is completely paperless, no branches. It was so successful that 2017, they launched it in Indonesia. Okay. They set up the operations. Olivier Crispin was the gentleman who championed it. They did the whole thing with no ops. The whole thing goes straight through STP, straight through processing. Everything worked. Okay? And now they've launched it. So just a couple more things to share with you. How do you measure digital? Well, that was a big challenge for the team. In the Strategy 1.0, they created a traditional balanced scorecard. In Strategy 2.0, they added making banking joyful. And you can see here the acquire, transact, engage, joyful customers and employees, okay, and capturing value created by digitalization. Right. So today, ATE is the main indicators that the senior team use. Every senior manager of the 250 has to be on a journey, a customer journey. And value created, they track with number of digital customers, income per digital customer. And this is still evolving. I bet you in 12 months, this will evolve even more. Okay. All right. So the challenge is that the gap between the top performing banks in the world today and the lower performing banks is growing. Even though our returns are down, the top performing banks are doing better. In case you're not convinced, this is the difference, according to McKinsey, of those who lag as digital and those who lead. So what were the benefits, just to wrap this up? The bank created a set of money transfer products around Asia, which enabled them to transfer money in 3 seconds. I had the pleasure when I was regional VP for Asia Pacific in Citigroup on the corporate side. So I was working with Piyush during that period. I remember doing a project with him where we wanted to transfer money on the corporate side within 60 minutes. Now, we're looking at 3 seconds. That's digital. By going digital and going paperless, DBS has half the number of tellers in their branches, and they're using API, okay, across the bank. In Singapore, close to 38% of customer acquisitions are done digitally. The bank gets 18% of its wealth customers and more than 50% of the SMEs via digital. Last year, I started a new company. I was one of the new SMEs. They established the cost of local transactions done digitally, which can be less than 5% of your traditional, and the cost per credit card of digital acquisition is 1/3. Okay? And the cost per account maintenance is 10%. All right. So today, 5.2 million customers using online and mobile services. The population of Singapore is 5.3. Okay? 60% of SME customers open their accounts online. Digitally engaged customers generating 2 times more revenue than their other customers. And they went in the Singapore customer service, they went from last to first. So they overtook Singapore Airlines as the best service company in Singapore. Just in case you're still not yet convinced, last year's results were up 4%, okay? Profit to 4.39 billion Sing dollars, about 4 billion US. Today, they've invested up to 5 billion on technology and plan to keep a total IT spending between 800 million to 900 million annually. All right? The journey is really just beginning. They're ahead of many other banks around the world, but when you talk to the team, when you see what's going on, it's so exciting. There's an energy in the bank that is wonderful. And you know, the story over the next year or two, maybe I'll be back here next year just to share what's happened from then. To close out from myself, I work with a company called WorkFusion, which focuses on robotics, RPA, out of America. So we offer, you know, my company Bridges and WorkFusion, we work with banks helping them adopt RPA into their corporate culture and their strategy. Okay? And I've written some of the books. So just to close out, it's been an absolute delight to be back in Karachi. I was last here about 6 years ago. I'd like to thank Terabits for the invitation to join you today. And I hope you have a wonderful experience and knowledge learning. And thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. I'm sure many of you would like to interact with him. The news is that he'll be with us today. So, of course, you can catch with him during the lunchtime, tea time, or other than that. May I now invite Mr. Sagir Mufti, Chief Operating Officer, HPL, to please come on stage to present the shield to Mr. Robin Speculand. And I would also invite Hamza Wasi Hashmi and Mr. Shabaz Zaidi to please join them on the stage.
You're working hard.
Can I take poetic license with what you just said?
On which part?
On everything you just said.
Can we take, sorry?
Can I take some poetic license?
Yeah.
So, please. I've taken permission to make a comment about what he just said. In simple terms, he's saying, do something. Doesn't matter what you do, start the journey.
Absolutely.
For one reason.
Implementation's all about action.
And that goes back to what Nadeem said in the morning. We are dinosaurs. We're going to be extinct unless we change ourselves in the financial services industry.
Yes.
So my request to all of you is one simple message. Don't be scared. You're going to get it wrong. Doesn't matter. Start and fix it along the way because digital is the future. Thank you.
Fully agree. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you.